My hope is by now that I've built the importance of clarifying values, that is, identifying what matters most to you, that they help guide our decision making and our behaviors. They transform the interpretation of daily actions that we engage in, taking something that seems kind of tedious, perhaps annoying or frustrating, and actually turning it into something that's meaningful and consistent with who you want to be. The next part is to build towards doing what matters most. But in order to do that, we got to go from kind of understanding the concept of values to creating value statements that ultimately guide our behavior. In order to do that and accomplish that, what we first need to do is figure out what are the domains of values. And I like to think about it as that we all wear many hats in life. Or we could say we all play different roles in our life. For example, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a professor, I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm also a teammate in various hobbies I take on. So those are the different domains in which I could clarify values, because I surely want to be a certain type of brother. I want to be a particular type of son. Who do I want to be known as a father, a husband, and a professor? Each one of these represent value domains. And we also forget one really important value domain, and that is about self-care or our own personal health. And we can develop a very kind of deep list of value statements that relate to our own physical, mental, and behavioral well-being. Okay, so we have domains or value domains, which are the hats we wear in life. Once we identify that, we then go and identify specific, what we call values-directed behaviors. There's specific actions that you spend time thinking about, that you want to engage in, that enable you to be the person you want to be in a particular domain. For example, who do I want to be as a father? Who do I want to be known as by my children as a father? What are the behaviors I can engage in on a daily basis that would enable me to kind of bring to life that core value? So that's the next piece, is going from a domain to specific behaviors in that area that enable you to live consistent with who you want to be, and ultimately you do what matters most. When we do this and stay committed to engaging in those behaviors, despite stressors coming in or unwanted thoughts and experiences, we ultimately reflect on life as being more meaningful and fulfilling, and the impact of stress is lessened. Okay, before we go on, I want to make sure that we have a firm grasp of the connection between values and behaviors. So if we think about values, the concept of values, it's the big idea. But that big idea must be connected to kind of the roles we play or the domains we can create values within. Within those value domains, we create value statements, things that matter most to us within that, and those then inform kind of our behaviors, our goals, and our decisions within each of those value domains. So let me put this in context and give you an example. So I have an understanding of values, which then informs me to reflect on my value domain, such as my work. And in my work as a professor, I can create a value statement such as, really being a supportive advisor who helps springboard the career of a young professional. So that's something I value. It's not something that's achieved. I do it it's a one-time event and I'm done. This is represents an ongoing pattern of action that I must engage in order to live consistent with that. So if I then take it down to the behavioral level, I'm going to make sure that I'm opening kind of communication with my students, setting up meetings on a regular basis to connect with them. I'm going to make sure that I communicate to them that I have an open door and email policy, so they always feel that they can communicate with me and receive feedback or ask for advice. And last but not least, I'm going to make sure I create opportunities for them and make those opportunities available for them so they can actually capitalize on opportunities to experience kind of professional growth and get in a place that will help catapult their career moving forward. So as you can see, I start with the concept of values, I move to a particular domain, and then I get to the behaviors. And this is how the whole process should work and ultimately does work for people who are resilient. So let's go from kind of the concept of how values, value domains and behaviors relate to one another to what I consider the most difficult work, and that's creating the actual value statements. The fact of the matter is most people haven't spent time thinking or clarifying their values. So this can be kind of challenging, frustrating, and sometimes stressful work to engage in because they just don't come to the forefront of your mind. So you actually have to do some kind of personal inward work in order to clarify these things. But when we develop a value statement, it is specific and connected to a particular value domain. And I'm going to highlight just a couple here. So let's take the value domain of personal care and well-being. I may have the value of feeling healthy and physically fit. So that's something I value, that's important to me. And a lot of people may have that as a value, but then they don't engage in kind of the daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly activities that enable one to live consistent with that value. So that value statement as being as healthy as possible and keeping in physical fitness to enjoy life activities now and in the future would then help me plan out a variety of behaviors or actions I can take on an ongoing basis to live consistent with that value domain. We can also move kind of from that value domain to something else like being a sibling. So I'm a brother, I have one brother, and I think it's really important to actually be someone who is there and always at my brother's side, that he actually knows that. And also that he knows that I love him. So that's a nice idea or a value statement, but it's more important to think about what are the behaviors that enable me to live consistent with that value. What will I do on a constant basis to and communicate to my brother that I'm there for him and that I love him? What can I do and say on an ongoing basis? So it's all good if we, spend time developing value statements. We identify specific behaviors that we want to engage in that enable us to live consistent with who we want to be. But it's another thing to actually stay committed to engaging in those behaviors. For example, we can take the love to be a volunteer. Many people believe and have a value of volunteer work, but when we really break down to it, people aren't spending time volunteering. They're not engaging in the behaviors. They're not committing to that action. So a really essential component to being a resilient person is to go from values to value statements, identifying specific behaviors and actions you can take to living consistent with them. And it's the next thing to actually staying committed to doing what matters most. So we have to do kind of commitment check-ins, if you will. And that is reflecting on our core values, really self-reflecting on the behaviors we're engaging in, and looking at the alignment. Are our behaviors consistent with who we want to be? Or is there a disconnect? And if there is a disconnect, what types of things are getting in the way of you being the person you want to be in whatever value domain it is? So the next part that is really essential, and this is the make or break to becoming a resilient person, and that is the commitment part. Not only clarifying your values and identifying the actions, but staying committed to them.